video, we will be discussing the history of the pixie cut, why women love it, why men hate it, and why I decided to get it. My initial thought was when someone talked about short hair, they were talking about flappers from the roaring 20s, but it actually started a lot earlier than that, surprisingly earlier than that. It all started with the Titus cut. So the original inspiration for the pixie cut started in 509 BC within the Roman Republic. The name is a reference to Titus Junius Brutus. How to pronounce
Junius.
In 1729, the French Enlightenment writer Voltaire writes a play about this Brutus guy, and the main actor who was playing Titus had this layered hairstyle. And soon after, young men, and yes, women, started getting the Titus cut. And this cut became particularly popular during the French Revolution, aka when French nobility were being overthrown. Apparently, the short layered hairstyle was supposed to replicate the way an executioner would shear off someone's hair before decapitating them at the guillotine to make sure they get a nice shot at their neck. Lovely. And to complete the look, women would often sport these red ribbons around their neck to symbolize the sacrifice of the guillotine victims. It was even theorized that members of the upper class would make victims' parties and show up dressed a la victim or like the victim.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
The pixie cut became more popular again in the 1950s with Audrey Hepburn and Mia Farrow, and for some more modern examples, Jamie Lee Curtis and Halle Berry. And then the pixie cut became more popular with mainstream, famously long-haired celebrities like Scarlett Johansson, Anne Hathaway, Natalie Portman. And it seemed that the pixie cut was coming back as a viable option for the everyday woman, even though all of these celebrities have like crazy bone structure. During this era, when it was spreading around to celebrities like the cool, new, latest trend, and when this happened, it almost seems as if every girl goes through a pixie cut stage. When we're talking about a pixie cut, women fall into one of two categories. One, women who have amazing bone structure and are skinny and are meant for the pixie cut. And two, the people who tried it out, hated it, got weird comments about how it didn't look very good, or just didn't have the face for it, whatever that means. I don't know what that means. What scared me most about getting a pixie, and this is pretty surprising to me, is that I was scared of what men would think of it. Because I'm straight and I want to get married someday. I was terrified that I wouldn't be at my premium pretty potential. I was scared for much of my life that my predestined soulmate existed, first of all, but that my predestined soulmate would take one look at my hair and be like, I just don't really like short hair on women. And then he would walk away, and then I would die an old spinster. The things that we believe when we're young, right? I actually spent an embarrassing amount of time scrolling through Ask Men Reddit forums, and then seeing the majority of the men on there saying, I couldn't see myself dating a woman with short hair. This isn't a moral decision about what men's preferences are. I am merely wondering what's going on. And then some guys would say, I know I have been conditioned by society to prefer women with long hair, and as much as I would love to go against that social conditioning, it's just a preference. So I came up with two conclusions. One, it's silly to base a life choice off of a soulmate that may or may not even exist. And two, why do I feel like it's my responsibility to be beautiful above all else? Actually, let me tell you why. The strong preference for women being told that they need to be beautiful in our culture is so ingrained that people feel like they have the right to openly comment on your appearance. Like, I'm not even sure if I'm actually offended at this point. I just find it really interesting and I'm quite curious about it. I made a pros and cons list. So the pros were saving time that I would have spent getting ready in the morning, less money on shampoo, hair out of my face, eliminating decision fatigue because my hair just has one thing that I can do to it now. And then the cons, which shamefully enough, number one was men don't like it. Another one that I used to have is that it requires frequent hairdresser touch-ups, which I completely eliminated because I cut my own hair now. This is my handiwork. I think it's easy, and I'm gonna make a whole video about that, so stay tuned. And the last one is a very big hindrance for a lot of women, and that is growing it out. Now let's address this con, because I'm about to tell you that it's actually a blessing. One of the things about having short hair, which I've already mentioned, is that you pretty much have one set hairstyle. So the beautiful thing about growing it out is that you never get bored. You get a new hairstyle every 1 to 2 weeks. And yes, there are awkward stages, but you can just use those awkward stages to work on your character and your personality. Have I convinced you yet? Another con that you'll see on a lot of these, like why I got a pixie cut videos or the pros and cons of a pixie cut, is that you might look like a man. And you'll see in the comments of a lot of these videos, people identifying as wanting to have maybe a more masculine haircut and being perfectly fine with that. So I don't know. I feel like it's interesting that people don't really talk about that. And how that con is just by default like heteronormative, so I don't know. I'm straight, maybe I shouldn't even be talking about this, but the selling point for this haircut, for me, was the functionality. And I spent hours trying to research how to best care for my long hair when I had it. And let me tell you, it was not a walk in the park, because I have like greasy roots and then dry ends, and it's not fun. And I wanted to have a haircut that would look good and polished almost immediately. And if it is about men, you also have to ask yourself, what kind of a man do you want? Do you want someone who values your hair over your personality? Is that really what you want? I'm not speaking about the men who do prefer long hair over short hair. I actually do prefer how my hair looks when it's longer. It's just that the time spent, I don't feel like it's worth it for my own life. I'm not speaking for anyone else. What I'm talking about is the men who seem to just write off any woman who has short hair just automatically without even giving her another glance. But overall, I'm very satisfied with how I've chosen to live my life, I guess. I stand by my reasons. I stand by the questions that I asked in this video. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be great. If you would like to like it, that would also be great. Maybe share your experience. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.